Good morning, grandkids. Today is going to be another chapter in my story that I'm writing about Dorkly, the young wizard, in a kingdom far, far away. This is chapter 6. Othello woke late the next day with no plans except for being lazy, and she smiled at such a thought. She finally got up and dressed for the day. She was in a light-hearted mood and wanted to wear something to match that mood. She picked out a long dress which was white and full of blue flowers. It was slightly off the shoulders, and the neckline was surrounded by a ruffle of white lace. She twirled in front of her mirror, then cinched in her waist with a pale blue braided ribbon tied in a bow in front, with the ends hanging down the front, loose, no beads on them, so they could just float and sway with any movement that she made. She did another twirl with a smile in front of her mirror. She slipped some blue sandals on her slender feet and decided to go for a stroll in the outer court. She glanced back in the mirror before she left her room. Othello was slender and graceful, with a head of red hair streaked with beautiful blonde highlights. Her alabaster skin with large green eyes made her really quite beautiful. But she was single for so long that she felt that she must be rather plain, although there was a particular young man who flirted and danced with her, whom she found quite charming and handsome. She smiled and turned to the door just as someone knocked. She opened it, and there stood a palace guard. He gave a slight bow and informed her that the king was requesting his daughter's presence in his private dining chamber for lunch. And then he turned and strode away down the hall. Well, she thought, this would be a pleasant diversion for the day. She always enjoyed being with her father, as seldom as it was. She left her rooms and walked toward her father's suite of rooms. She entered his sitting room, giving a smile to the guard at his door, who, staying straight and at attention, gave her a wink. She continued on into her father's small personal dining area. She saw him sitting at the end of his table, and a place sitting for her to his right. As she approached the table, they smiled at each other, and she kissed him on his forehead as he lifted his hand to his lips and kissed it. "You look absolutely lovely, my dear child, like a spring flower." The king was beaming. "Thank you, my king," she said with a small curtsy. "Ah, you're king, but your father within private rooms." "I was teasing with you," she laughed. "And you, I must say, are looking a little sly. Is there something other than good fellowship that brings us together for lunch?" she asked, as a servant pulled out her chair for her, and she sat down, fluffing out her skirts around her. She reached for a goblet of wine and took a sip. She set it down, looking at her silent father. "Well, is there?" The king spread out his hands and asked, "What? We had lunch a few days ago. This is no different. I wanted to see my cute daughter again." And he was smiling at her jovially. Othello was still looking at her father as she picked up her glass again, took another sip. She set the glass down and said, "Father, this is a pleasure, of course, but there's more. I can see it in your eyes, so you just as well come out with it." At that time, the servers came out and started serving their lunch and refilling their glasses. Today's fare was small stuffed guinea hens nested on a golden mash of potatoes with a souffle of carrots, having a seared, caramelized topping. The servants rushed away, and the king's smile drifted away. "All right," the king said as he started eating and pointed his fork at her to do the same. He looked at Othello and tipped his glass toward her as he continued, "I want to speak with you about getting you married." She raised her eyebrows at this. I know. I've taken way too long about this," he said. "I'm in the process now, reaching for the right suitor for you. But I want you to know that I will never expect you to agree to anyone whom you will not feel acceptable. Never." He smiled at her, and she reached over and took his hand, the one that didn't have that fork still pointing at her. She smiled back, letting him know that she was quite pleased by what he said. The king then dug into his food with a smile, a lighter heart, and feeling quite blessed. They both began eating and happily talking and gossiping. Othello told him that she doubted she could even boil water, much less order the servants to prepare meals, but she had to laugh at this. The king was quite happy that she had been open and was sharing her feelings with him, but he decided he wanted a little more. "I'm going to send let's call her a wife trainer," he said with a loud laugh. "She will help you. Also, I've seen you whenever there has been a party and noticed one young man who always manages to claim your hand for a dance. Is there anything there that you'd like for me to consider?" I didn't know you had noticed," she blushed. "His name is William." And she hesitated a bit, but then said, "I'm quite taken with him." And she lowered her eyes, blushed some more. Great, the king exclaimed. "I'll look into it at once. I won't let your life just pass you by, my dear, and I'm truly sorry that I've been such a lazy old fool." "Thank you, father," she almost whispered. She already felt a load lifting off her shoulders. "But you're hardly an old fool," she laughed. He happily started eating again, wondering how he could have been this blind and thoughtless through the years. The rest of their time together was relaxing, fun, and very pleasant. When King Conley returned to the throne room and climbed the couple of steps up to his throne and sat down, he spied Wizard Gorman out on the court floor talking to some of the guards. Conley told a young footman to walk over and tell Gorman that he wanted to speak with him. Conley watched the conversation take place, and he and the wizard's eyes connected as Gorman tipped his head and left the guards. He came and stepped up beside the king. Conley asked, "Have you seen Dorkly around? I haven't seen him since he left the palace grounds yesterday." "I haven't either, sire," Gorman said with a lifted eyebrow. "He probably caught himself a wench wherever he's at. Do you wish me to search him out?" "No, that's okay. What I'm going to do is set up dinner this evening. Don't know yet if I'm going to make it private or an open dinner and dance. But I will want you there, and if Dorkly shows up, bring him along. I'm going to see if I can use this enchanted belt successfully to garner any useful information from Dermis without causing any trouble with it, I hope." Gorman said, "I've been talking with some guards and people out and about in the courtyards and businesses, trying to see if any kind of gossip is going on about Dermis, but nothing really comes up. I may start using enchantments in my own spying, I guess." "Good idea," Conley said. "Another thing. I'd like for you to find out what you can about a young man named William. He and my daughter seem interested in one another. I'm going to invite him to my party this evening also. Let's see how delicately we can play this," the king said with a slight smile. "I shall try to be as superbly inconspicuous as possible," Gorman said, as he turned and descended the steps from the throne. So they've got some plans afoot, and we shall see what comes of them, what comes of this dinner, and what comes of her friend William. So I will see you all the next time that I read the next chapter of this book. So bye for now. Be good, everybody.